This episode is brought to you by the revolutionary Muslim matrimonial site Half Our Deen, which uses science, not swipes, to help you find the other half. On Half Our Deen, you can learn about their personality, interests, and view up to 158 answers to marriage-related questions so you don't waste time with people that you're not compatible with. With over 2,500 success stories, Half Our Deen has quickly become the #1 choice for marriage-minded Muslims.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode on the ReMAStered Podcast. I'm your host, Muhammad Tarbiya, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, and we're talking to Brother Baba Ali, and we're talking about the struggle so many single Muslims dudes are facing today. So first of all, how are you, Brother Baba Ali?
Good, alhamdulillah. Welcome, salamtullah. I'm excited to be here. So I'm looking forward to it.
I have to say, I'm a little bit geeked because I seen when I was turning back to the Deen, your YouTube video was my go-to spots. And right now my kids are watching your Baba Ali, hooray, Baba Ali, right? So I'm a bit geeked to have you today, inshallah. For our listeners who don't know who this person is and is very special guest to me, mashallah, I'm honored to be here with you. So Baba Ali, you are the co-founder of revolutionary matchmaking site, halfourdeen.com, which has the alternative to the Tinder clone, right? Dating apps we see today. So on our Half Our Deen, you can learn about their personalities, interests, cultural, and religious preferences so you can find the right person to be compatible with. So I'm guessing there's no swiping. There is no, hey, we match, our color eyes matches and boom, it's going to happen, right? That's not happening in your site. And by the way, I do want to, I'm curious, did you use the site to get married? Like, how did you, what's your story? Talk to us.
So many years ago, I couldn't go through my parents because I'm a convert. I couldn't go through my friends because they're mostly single. So then you cross off parents, you cross off friends, your local community, there's no program to help you find your other half. So I did the unthinkable back in 2001. I went online. And today online is normal, but back then it was abnormal. And I wasn't sure which website worked for me. So I joined all of them. And after I joined all my websites, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be very, very specific because the last thing I want to do is talk to 100 people. I don't even want to talk to 10. I don't even want to talk to 5 people. I just want to talk to one sister. So in order to filter on all these people, I came up with a very, very specific description of what I'm looking for and about myself, including explaining the weaknesses about myself and saying that I won't change. Just accept me as is. So if I change, alhamdulillah, if I don't change, don't say, okay, I was hoping you had potential of changing. No, I'm as is. So I was just hoping after everyone reads all these profiles, only one person will respond, and 17 people did. And when 17 people showed interest, I found, okay, you say, wow, that's a good problem. No, it's not a good problem. I have 17 people to talk to? No, thanks. So what I did is I came up with a series of questions that didn't have right or wrong answers. And I sent it to all 17 of them. Very unique questions. And 17 people answered them, and only one sister answered it correctly. And because they didn't know what the right answer was. They're very unique questions, and only one answered correctly, but the problem is she lived 5,000 miles away. So I got on a flight. I went to meet her. After 20 minutes of meeting her for the first time, I took out my camera, and she's like, what's that for? I said, just in case this works out, one day we might have kids, and they're going to ask, how'd you meet mama? I want to record it. Wow. So from that moment to 9 days later, when I got married, it became a 2-hour documentary about how Ali met his wife. And that's the end of the story. No one's really seen it except for my wife and my kids. So because the kids one day asked me, how'd you meet mama? I said, here you go, I have a DVD. And you have the DVD. It's like a movie. Yeah, all the behind scene footage, all the stuff that happened, like me talking to the wali, the whole thing put together. But so that's my little story about...
So, do you have your DVD? You have to also, make sure you have a DVD player and make sure that DVD player connection also works with the old TV. So you got to keep all of that for your kids.
Yeah. I have it. PlayStation, just pop it in and the kids actually watched it. When I showed my wife one day about this and put the whole movie together, you know what her response was? Okay, that's nice. I'll watch it later. So what do you want for dinner? Chicken or beef? So my wife is like, no matter what I've done, I made candy bars for her, movies, everything. She said, okay, that's fine. What do you want? And she's like, I tell her she's the hardest person in the world to impress, but she's super humbles me, alhamdulillah. So it's awesome.
That's amazing. But you know what? I'm drawing a lot of questions there because we're talking about struggles a lot of brothers are going through, or the brothers are intentionally struggling to go through, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned something very important. You knew what you wanted. Right. Yeah. So you said you create the fact that you wanted to talk to one. Look, the predicament in our community is the whole 4 wives jokes are behind the scene. But a lot of brothers like, like, oh, I don't mind talking to a few sisters to compare contracts. And I think like, is that like, do you think is that we're going to get to this, right? Do you think it's a whisper, or what is that? Is that like some sort of a damaging wish list for a lot of brothers who are still single because they keep swiping or they have too many options? You knew what you wanted. I think that's something powerful that I got out from your intro. You knew what you wanted. Do you think that's one of the challenges we're facing currently right now is brothers don't know what they want? Or is that something in their paradigm is a given and that's how they're rolling with things?
So here's one thing. Even when you hear the single brothers talk about, and I say single brothers, talk about marrying multiple wives, it's one of two issues that really happen. It's brothers who've never married before. So they're like, I'll take 2, I'll take 3, I'll take 4. They're like really hungry. So they just think that there's like burgers or something. It doesn't work that way. So any married guy, you rarely hear them talk about second wife, third wife. I mean, you go to a single brother table at the wedding versus the married brother table. They're talking about it. Those guys, I'm good, bro. I am good. And the way I try to compare it to brothers is kind of like jobs. You have a full-time job and you make money out of it. So let's just pretend money is the intimacy aspect of it, right? So when people are thinking about marriage, they're thinking about intimacy, right? They don't realize it's 90% work, 10% money, right? So it's like 90% of marriage has nothing to do with intimacy. But the guys who are single, they think it's 90% intimacy and 10% everything else. So of course they want 4 times intimacy, whatever. What married guys realize is what I just mentioned right now. So why would I want a second job, work full time just for another check, and then work literally 16 hours a day? I'm like, no, dude, I'm good with one job. I'm totally good. I am totally good. And that's my mentality. So a lot of brothers, and I know sometimes the brothers come up with the thing is a lot of sisters need to get married. And who's going to marry these older sisters in their 50s with children? I mean, we can keep saying one day someone will be there for them, but realistically, if polygamy was a solution, the issue here is the married brothers who don't qualify to take care of a second, third, or fourth wife are the ones marrying those sisters. And the people who do qualify, they want nothing to do with it. Not specifically because of the sister, is because like people like me. I look at myself as being successful. I'm extremely stable. And I have zero interest in it. I have friends who work for who do really well. Zero. I don't know one person who's doesn't have a second or third wife that's not stressed out. I'm not joking. Literally, when I went to Hajj, there's a guy to my left and a guy to my right. He had 2 wives, he had 3 wives. I met these people during Hajj, stressed out the whole time. And I'm like, I'm chilling. I'm just chilling. You guys are stressed out because it's kind of like when you have kids. If you have one child, there are certain things, dynamics that you'll never experience until you have multiple children. Like, for example, as soon as you have 2 children, now you have to worry about attention being equal, presents that you give them equal. I want the blue balloon. No, I want the balloon. The only reason why he wants or she wants the blue balloon is because the other one wants the blue balloon. You know how it is. So that's a lot of stuff you have to deal with that I don't have to deal with. And then the accountability and responsibility that comes with on the day of judgment, I have enough to worry about. No thanks.
So let me, do you so I'm married, I got 2 kids, and I'm with you in terms of like second, third. I'm like, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? It's work, right? It's a lot of work. So I grew up watching Shah Rukh Khan. I was influenced through Bollywood context, right? And of course you had this imaginary dream, things are going to happen. It's going to rain and she's going to, come from behind the tree. I think right now in today's context, in reality, do you think of course, look, no matter how much I tell like single guys, it's a lot of work. Like it's a lot of work. And they're looking at me like, oh no, it's, I'm going to be with my wife. I'm going to take her. I was like, yeah, I was in your shoes a while back and Amo told me the same thing. It didn't get to my head. But do you think this comes from a social, pressure of for example, in society, the hypersexual society, the context that you're observing through Netflix. I mean, there are things we're taking in that affects our heart and our mind and our intellect, right? And I think this is something that we have to step back and say, okay, I'm Muslim. Here are the things that impacts my heart, my mind, my body. And then here's what I'm projecting as who I am, right? So do you think what are your thoughts? And of course you're dealing with this amazing, awesome website that we definitely need to talk about more. Do you see that a lot more guys are falling into the trap of the American culture of hey, you know what? I don't have to get married. I'll stay single. I can just date, right? Completely take the haram approach, and they're okay with it. And they're just living their life without any sense of directions and guidance. And sometimes the community is not helping. The society is not giving the right directions. And there's no mentorship. The murabbi is not there also to guide them. I think that's very crucial. in anything. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think if you want to see someone's understanding of Islam, watch how they behave and watch their mannerisms, watch their actions. That's really, I don't care what someone, you pray next to somebody, that doesn't mean anything. People talk a lot, and then that doesn't mean anything to me. Show me through your actions what you believe in, because when push comes to shove, we're going to see exactly what you believe in when time and situation is difficult. And for a lot of single people looking to get married, it's like, okay, I'm having a difficult time finding my other half. So, hey, guess what? I'm just going to go take this route. I'm going to satisfy my sexual desire or my feeling of companionship, this alternative route. So do you really, really think that you'll be accountable on the day of judgment? Do you really, really think that there's a punishment associated with this? Do you really believe it? Because but do you really believe it? And when you really dig that deep, and you realize that a lot of people may not even believe in Islam that are Muslim. If you dig deeper, some of them are not even sure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really exists. Wow. So when the foundation is weak, when the storm comes, and all of us will get hit with different storms, that foundation starts crumbling. And that's why I tell people, if you want to see your true level of iman, your true level of faith and belief, don't look at the person when he's fasting, praying, going hajj, and all these things that everyone else does, because everyone can do that. Look at them, or look at yourself when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests you. That is showing your level of iman. So like sometimes when people are looking to get married, some sisters say, okay, how do I really know what this guy's really like? One brother will say, I know this guy from the masjid. He's a very good brother. And they're like, really, what do you know about the guy? Everyone in the masjid may be acting in a very different way than really when they are being tested. Yeah. And as a brother yourself, do you play any sports?
I do, soccer.
Okay, so you know if you pray next to a brother and you go play soccer with that same brother, it can be a completely different behavior. Usually some people's like some people that don't pass at all, right? It could be a very practicing brother, does not pass the ball. It's all about him. I mean, that tells you, he's laughing because you know what I'm talking about. They're in their own world. Like they have no self-awareness. It's like they're just looking at themselves they don't understand, like this is a team sport. There's 11 people on this team. We're working together to score this goal. And every time you get the ball, you don't hit anything. Yeah. And you think it's about you. So there's people, if I tell people, if you want to see someone's like a brother's personality, come out, play a sport with them. Really, the guy who's like, I seen a brother I play basketball with, has a big beard, wears a thobe, and F-bomb after F-bomb after F-bomb dropping. Yeah, he's the same guy who leads our salah.
Oh my God, yeah. So I have an interesting question for you here, because look, you know, of course you created an amazing platform. And what's your success rate right now? Like how many people got married through your site?
So we have about 2,500 success stories on Half Our Deen. And those are the ones that tell us. So I don't measure how well the site's doing based on success stories, which is what people do. Because the success is not in my hands. The success is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What it is in my hands is the effort. Like, what are you going to do to build it to attract a different audience than these swiping and dating apps? Because a lot of people using these apps are saying, hey, I keep getting attracted by these, I keep getting approached by these people that I have zero interest in. Or like sometimes people complain that people are just not even looking to get married. They're just like, I'm not looking for anything serious, they'll say, put on their profile. And then it's like, what are you doing on a Muslim matchmaking website if you're not looking for anything? Like, what are you really looking for? Yeah. So they're not saying I'm looking for pure intimacy with no strings attached. They just do it in an indirect way. And they're hoping there's some girls who have the same low self-esteem or say, okay, this is the only way I can get a guy type of thing. And they'll fall for it. And the very fact that their profile is there tells you that maybe the people are falling for it. And that's kind of sad. It's the stuff that we don't really discuss, because until you're like a family therapist, until you're somebody that deals with Muslim issues, you don't really know what's going on within our Muslim community. You don't know the level of infidelity that's happening with practicing Muslims. I have a good sense, not just because I run a matchmaking website, but because me being Baba Ali, I interact with a lot of family therapists, a lot of people who've been doing this for years. And they tell me stuff that sometimes I feel like sometimes better sometimes not to know, because it'll kind of scare you if you know how bad the situation is.
It is definitely scary, right? I think I want to go back to the question to kind of ask you, like getting to know somebody through a website, effectiveness of it. Because look, you know, like you said, go play soccer with somebody. I mean, look, 10 years ago, when I was getting married, I was in the market, I was looking. I remember I walked into a certain family, there was a certain standard. If I didn't meet, forget it, you're kicked out. Now I'm like, I have parents coming up to me like, please find me somebody for my daughter. I'm like, really? now you're like almost giving, it's like giving away your daughters, like almost, because there's so much struggle in our society. Do you believe that, brothers are taking a step back because of what they're able to do in those platforms? They're able to date, they're able to do all this haram things. So it's like, why settle in? Why, why just get settled much quicker than when I can just relax? I can take my time and try before they buy, I guess, the concept, right?
Yeah. So let's go back and say, where does this concept even come from? And if you understand where the root comes from, like right now we're looking at the branch, right? So let's go back to the tree. Okay. If you really want to look at the tree, let's look at the root. The whole root is coming from an idea that actually started about a few hundred years ago, 17th, 18th century. And that was an idea that was way before the Muslims, had nothing to do with Muslims, by the way. It was the idea of liberalism and the whole thing of the church in Europe. And there was this, as you know, where the whole secularism came from. From secularism came other concepts, from feminism to liberalism to thisism to thatism, right? Yeah. But the liberalism itself, we always talk about liberal sisters and why liberal sisters are like this and the negative impact. We never, ever hear about the other issue. What does liberalism do to brothers? What impact does that take when we take on those ideas that are outside of Islam? So one thing you see with both liberal and liberalism that has an impact for a lot of Muslims is that the mentality of me first. Whatever takes care of me first. And I'm going to take care of myself. Even people who are practicing, they take a bits of this and they say, look, I just got divorced and I know what I'm going to do from now on. I'm taking care of myself first. Me. And you have this mentality. And let's say Baba Ali was talking this way. If you hear Baba Ali keep saying, me, I'm going to take care of myself. I just got divorced. I'm going to I'm not a good candidate for marriage. And I'm giving off the wrong signals to a lot of people, because why would you ever want to marry me when I'm talking about me? I'm not taking care of you. I'm taking care of me. So when the people are going out there and saying, look, I'm going to use these people to sleep around with them. I'm going to use this and use this. Yeah. This has nothing to do with Islam. This has gone outside of the scope of Islam, because there is nothing in Islam that says take care of yourself first. Don't take care of others. Does not take care of your wife. Don't take care of your kids. Take care of you. This is a foreign concept in Islam, and too many Muslims have adopted it. Because of that main foundation that's now part of their quote-unquote aqidah, this is branched out to all these other things that you're seeing right here, where the guys are doing whatever they want. Why should I get married? And look, imagine if it's a me first mentality. If I get married, I have to share half of my wealth with her and to provide for her and provide for our kids, while I can be single, have no responsibilities, and not take care of anything. So sisters who are listening, I want you to take it to this liberal man's perspective for 1 second. Imagine this. What benefit do I have about getting married? It's all risk. If I get divorced, even if I didn't do anything wrong, I'll lose 50% of my assets. And I own alimony on top of that. Number two, I can lose custody to my own children. Again, I've done nothing wrong. Yeah. She can literally cheat on you and get divorced. It's not haram to cheat in American society, right? In Western society, you can't even get divorced for that, but she can get divorced for any reason she wants. She has a headache, she can get divorced and take the kids with her. And almost every single court will give the kids to a woman who's sane. So as long as she's like not a massive drug dealer or has like mentally like not sane, they will give your children to this woman that you thought you can trust. So that's all the risks that comes to the men's perspective. Now, the female takes a risk, obviously, for being pregnant and whatever, but we're talking from the men's perspective of what they're thinking. So then he says, I'm losing all this, and what am I gaining out of it? Yeah. That I can't get in other ways is like, only thing I can gain out of it is they think, okay, intimacy aspect. But if they don't care about Islam, they'll go get their intimacy from outside of Islam, as you just mentioned. And now you're stuck with, okay, someone's going to take care of the house. Well, guess what? If every week at this house I'm living in right now, I pay $110 every 2 weeks for someone to clean the house. But if I had to pay someone once a week, I'll pay $440 a month. If I want to pay someone to come and cook all the best dishes, and then maybe 3 or 4 days of the week I eat out, I just replace food and cleaning and everything else. So the guys have this personality and says, look, I don't really need a wife. Why take the risk? What do I gain? The risk is more than the reward. So what are you going to say to brothers like that have the mentality? Again, this is coming from the outside of Islamic scope. And that's the problem. When we're not looking at Islam as a way of our actions, and we're taking concepts outside of Islam, we're dealing with the repercussions that come with that, both men and women that have this mentality. And that's the problems we're getting.
And that's a very interesting point you mentioned, is I think goes back to where an individual is connected and where they're getting their faith and their spiritual knowledge from, right? Because if you're not if you know, as a Muslim living in American society, like, of course, it's not like back home there's this one ideology, one way of living. Everybody's just living that. Even the Islam is not portrayed pretty well most of our back homes, right? Here you have a la carte options. You can also have a choice of going and learning and educating yourself, which is very crucial. I think this is where a sense of community comes into play, a role in shaping your thoughts and understanding of who you are as a Muslim and your responsibility as a husband, as a potential husband too, right? Because you know, if you don't have an imam, like, you know, if your khutbah is about like a goat on the sidewalk, or if your khutbah is about like lame and putting you to sleep, there are things that are not transforming you, right? I mean, look, I was there. And I was struggling to get married. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there. There are genuine guys that are struggling, right? And are not able to find the right proper process, appropriate of asking. Like, some of them don't even know how to ask, how to ask for marriage, right? What are the process of steps they should take? And some of them has major potentials. But then there are these other challenges, like, you know, paradigm challenges, societal challenges, like you mentioned, ideological challenges. Again, going back to talking about the hypersexual society that we live in, even married people are falling into traps, right? Like, you know, you talk about the intimacy, even some, when if the married folks know what they're talking about, is that even in that realm, the intimacy, you have to bring it back. Like, it's like, you know, you're so hyped about this intimacy, and then when you get married a couple of 5 years later, you have to bring it back in the room. You're like, almost, you know, it's interesting concept. But like, so going back to the single guys, how do we really nurture them, I guess, as a point, right? What are some of the tips that you can give? It's like, you know what, these are the steps that one should take, you know, to really thinking about when it comes to marriage, because it is honestly, being married for 10 years, I think it should be more than half hour. It should be 75%. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And I don't know how to explain to these guys. I was like, I don't know how to explain to you. Imagine having, like you mentioned, having 3 jobs, 4 jobs. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot
good
of
work. It's a Tarbiya work.
Work.
It is Tarbiya work.
But it's half our Deen, bro. It's half of it. It's like, you can understand the amount of work you're putting in, all the trials and there's a reason I named the website Half Deen, by the way. There's, you know, other websites like Muslim marriage, Muslim matchmaking. Half Deen doesn't, like, it's not as easy on the tongue and easy for SEO, social engine and stuff like that. But I wanted something to realize that this audience is a complete different audience. And as you're mentioning here, so tips for the brothers, I think really the number one thing we have to do is get people back on the track of Islam. When we look at Islam as our solution for everything in life, then all the things when it comes, even when you're looking for your other half, aligns with that. But if Islam is not our main reference point, when we have drama in our marriages, or we have looking to get married, or anything else that we do, then it doesn't matter what Baba Ali says. It doesn't matter what you say. They're not going to listen. They're going to do whatever pleases them. They're going to go after whatever their desire is, right? So that's number one. We have to put Islam back on the picture and make that as a reference point. And for those who are listening, brothers, you know, in your mind, you're like, okay, I'm living the life I'm living right now, right? And I have these different things I'm having right now. But deep down, we need that companionship. Yes, intimacy is amazing, but after intimacy, you need that companionship. And ask every married person, like, what percentage of your life is intimacy, and what percentage of the marriage is all these other things that make the marriage amazing, right? It's not, okay, just intimacy alone. There's other things about marriage that makes it amazing. Ask like people, like, look at our society right now in prison. The worst people that you have that are in prison, that have life sentences, that are never going to get out, right? There could be the rapists, there could be the killers, there could be murderers, there could be all these evil people. They'll never get out. So they have no reason, no incentive to be good. Why should I just go stab everybody? I'm going to be in prison for the rest of my life anyways. So what do they do to keep those people in check? The worst punishment you can do to this mass murderer, to all these things, solitary confinement. For those who are not familiar with that, put you to be by yourself so you can be lonely. Okay? It's like, this evil, crazy looking guy, I don't want to be lonely. Because deep down, human beings, we need that companionship, even if it means just friends or just people. Even evil murderers need other evil murderers to be around because they need companionship. We are all pretending that, oh, I don't need a man, or I don't need a wife, and this is fake. We're just fooling ourselves. You can lie to yourself as much as you want, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made us as social creatures where we need each other. You need friends, Look at 1 year of being out of Corona, and look at how it impacted all these small things that we took for granted. And now we appreciate much more, just like when the doors are finally starting to open up, you get to see people again. And imagine that your companionship with your wife or with your husband will be way closer than any of those friends. Because this is the only relationship that even that's here for the hereafter, that we know for sure, 100%, that the righteous husband and wife will be together in the hereafter. Right?
Yeah,
so,
and I think it's interesting those two on the points you mentioned. Look, it's easy to go out there and just swipe. It's not just swipe, right? I mean, forget it's not just happening on those platforms. It's also happening socially on other social platforms, and even generally, like it's easy for you to commit zina as a guy, right? Yeah, but then that negative energy, that feelings that for a few moments of pleasure, you're actually sacrificing a lot. You're not just, your akhirah is in line. I mean, I think, and it's very, because you dropped the mic and saying like, go back to your deen. You really want to really figure out what you want in marriage and how you want to find the righteous. It's going back to finding yourself in a way, right? Because like, if you don't know who you are, and again, you mentioned this from the beginning of your podcast, I knew what I wanted. I had a certain scope in life, and that's what I was looking for. 17 sisters, mashallah, you got one. You have to be able to go back to the deen, go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, know who you are, and then things get much more clear for you to find the righteous spouse and whatnot. And look, so let's talk about that personnel. And even those individuals struggle in the community to find, if one partner is ready with that mindset, then there's like, you have to go, you went through 17 in 2001. I mean, think about how many people you have to go through now. Imagine, right? I would say maybe like hundreds out of like maybe 150 you have to go through it. Just, it's like speed dating in a way, right? It constantly going through to find the right person. What are some of the things that you guys are doing uniquely that, that kind of like takes it away and puts a little bit of serious content?
So imagine this for a second. From a male's perspective, if I made a pie chart, right? I'm going to say what important is physical attraction when it comes to most guys. What percentage would you say?
I would say,
be honest.
I would say 90%.
Okay, 90%. So, okay, so if you say there's no physical attraction, would the guy marry the female? Zero physical.
Look, I try to get some of my friends and to connect. First thing, I like height problem, looks problem. I'm sitting on like, you guys have
no. Just say the guy has zero attraction to her. Would he marry her? No.
Would he?
If he has zero, scale of 1 to 10, he gives her a 0, not a 1. 0.
No, he's not gonna marry her.
Okay, just be real. All right.
Yeah.
Now some sisters are looking at themselves. What if no one marries me? Don't look at how many different looking sisters there are. All shapes, all sizes, all heights, all weights, everything. And look how many sisters are married right now. So just because one person is not attracted to you doesn't mean that somebody else may not be attracted to you. I want you guys to imagine the best way, like you walk into like Macy's or like some type of perfume store. You smell one perfume, you're like, oh, what is this? And then you smell another one and say, oh, this smells good. The first ones you smell like, what is this? Oh, someone actually buys that, right? It's just everyone has different things that you're like, and you don't have a choice, just like food. So when it comes to all these different things, don't worry about that aspect of it. So going back to your thing about like the thing about swiping and what makes our site different, I want you to think about a male's perspective. A man, when it comes to just physical attraction, all we really need is your age, your first name, and your picture. And if you look at these swiping apps, it's very easy to tell, was it created by men or was it created by women?
Whoa, that's powerful. Okay.
All right. So women, so now you're thinking to yourself, okay, so what? It's created by a man. What's the big deal? I'll tell you what the big deal is. Now, if you guys are on your phones or on a laptop at home, I want you to type in the word male, female ratio, Tinder, for example. Why am I choosing Tinder? Because Muslims have copied like Minder, Muzzmatch. They basically took the Tinder model and they applied it for Muslims, right? It's just basically your picture, your first name, your age, and maybe a 10-word bio. So based on that, we are going to try to help Muslims get married. So what happens is we're going to have a very similar results. So 72% of Tinder are male, 28% are female. Wow. There's another interesting stat is about 34% of Tinder are people who already have a girlfriend-boyfriend relationship or they're already married. So they're looking for some side piece or some side action, as they say. And so they're not even looking for even like a girlfriend-boyfriend relationship. They already have a girlfriend-boyfriend. They just want you like temporary. So now you wonder like, okay, who would be attracted to this? Men, non-Muslim men, right? Unfortunately, sometimes Muslim men too, but they get attracted to this. And that's why only 28% of females use this. Now you type in the same words of type male-female ratio to like any of these, Minder, or type in must-match male-female ratio in Google and see what results you get. And it says, first result, and this, by the way, comes from must-match, saying that 2/3 of our audience are men, 66%. So again, you're about a similar situation where like, why is the vast majority of these website men? Is because it attracts men. And when your websites are built for men, by men, it's going to be used by men. And it only works if there's women using it. So what I did is listen, I need to make my staff of the Muslims who work on our website, almost the vast majority, if not almost all of them, I'm thinking top of my head, are female Muslim sisters, except for the developers who are not females. So the side, I listen to them and say, okay, what does a female need? What does a female brain look in their view? And I take their feedback and I put it all together with the ideas that I have to make it from both, to help both genders find the other half. And that's the difference. So like the average male, picture this and this, and we're fine. We're good. We don't need all the details, right? Sisters don't work like that. Their brain doesn't say, okay, just show me a good looking guy and I'll marry him. And just show me his age, his first name. And I've never met a sister that says that's enough. I
don't know, man. I don't know nowadays.
Nowadays, yeah, maybe to have a boyfriend or something. So maybe you're younger than me. So if you tell a sister that if I just found a guy who's handsome, he has no job, not looking for a job, he just plays video games, he's chilling. He's going to go on his looks. Would you marry him and apply for? Now, I know you may say girls are looking for guys. Yes. But I bet you, I'm a guy who's been doing this for 11 years. Of thousands of people I interact with, thousands. Yeah. I haven't met sisters who say, I'm okay to, as long as you have enough looks, I'll give you a pass on everything else.
Yeah.
Girls don't do that. Girls want a person to be like a companion. They're not looking for just a guy who just looks good, who looks prettier than they do. That's from male's brain. Men think like that. So when I talk to females, what are you looking for? And the females say, we're looking for details. So like when a woman starts talking to a man, she says, have you ever met a sister? So I don't even need to talk to you, let's just get married. No, I need to ask questions. What do you like? Tell me what you're into. They're asking all these questions to get more and more deeper to figure out, are you the right person? Even then, they're not 100% sure. I bet you all the sisters who are listening to this podcast right now, how many times you've been talking to this guy for such a long period of time and you still have this doubt in your head, is this the right guy? While men have this complete different level of confidence. Yeah, I'm gonna marry this girl. Very different brains, very different way of perspective. So what we do is we ask men 158 questions.
There are how many questions?
158.
I think you just filtered like 75% of the brothers from your side.
That's what's interesting. We ask men to take a personality test, an attraction test, a tolerance test. I give you 10 things and tell you to prioritize this in level of importance. You do a 5 deal breaker questions. You can type up yourself, things that you or will not compromise on. Then we ask you to choose from 100 interests, which you're into. And then we ask you to answer 158 questions. And you know what's interesting? 72% of the people on our website, they do that. Men.
Interesting.
I'm talking about 72% answer all 158 questions. So most of them, and 91% start answering questions. They do everything else, but they haven't answered all 158 questions. 91%. Yeah. But so the question is, even if the sisters listen to us right now, and you're talking to a guy you're really into, I want you to think to yourself what type of response you'll get from him. And say, "Assalamu alaikum, I'm really into you. I was wondering if you can answer these 158 questions really quick." Look at your smile. Look at the way tell me what response you would have to a sister if the sister asked you, you even like her. You like her. But she said, I really want you to answer these 158 questions before we take the next step. How would your response be? Be honest.
I mean, like, if I look, I'm married. I know if my wife's viewing this podcast, I'm just letting her know that, this is pre-marriage stuff, right? So if I really like someone, obviously I'll go out of my way. And if I'm like, look, if I'm serious, like who I am at my profile, if I'm serious, yes, I would want to answer those questions. Maybe I would answer them in a voice message. But I would try my best to answer them. I
wouldn't. I would run the other way. I'm like, 158 questions? Are you crazy? I wouldn't do it. I was like, something's wrong. There's no way.
Well, I'll do it once so I can play the same.
That's what I'm saying. So here's the thing. Sisters, when I talk to them, they have a hard time getting men to answer 10 questions or 5 questions or even fill out their profile.
So what do you do in that situation?
I use the male's brain to say, how would I get him? You need a man to think like a man to get men to answer 150 questions. To get women, I need a female's brain to figure out how to get girls to do certain things, right? So from a male's perspective, what are guys into? A lot of guys are into video games. When you play video games, what happens? You move from level 1 to level 2 to level 15, level 25, whatever, right? So what I did is I created levels on Half Our Deen. And the highest level you can get to is level 21. And the only way to get to level 21 is to answer all 158 questions. So men keep leveling up. But now when you play a video game, you think to yourself, okay, I just won the game. I won. What'd you get? Nothing. But you're still excited about playing. I said, no, there has to be an incentive. There has to be an incentive to get to level 21. And what I do is that if you get to level 21, you show up on top of search results. When we search by top members, you show up first. So if you want sisters to see you first, get to level 21. And most sisters, they value details of men. And imagine being able to see those men first because they want to see those men first anyways.
Yeah.
Men who are more committed, really looking marriage-minded, really looking to get married. And they're not only have answered 158 questions to get to level 21, but they've done a whole bunch of other things. And now you're seeing much more serious-minded men than guys who just do this all day. And that's the difference audience of Half Deen and the other audience and the other.
That's amazing. I would say that's amazing because you're already training them. There's a work required in marriage and institutions. So recently I heard this khatira about like Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? I mean, Dhul Hijjah is around the corner. And one thing that was mentioned in this khatira when Ibrahim wanted to see, ask Allah, just show me, I want to see a miracle from you, right? To affirm my beliefs. And we read these verses about how things just happens really quick, like the birds and this. And so it's somebody, the sister, Sister Maha was like, okay, imagine how long it took Ibrahim to go find a bird and then train the bird. I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't think about it. Actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made Ibrahim work to get that firmness in the faith. It took some days and it took time to really see this miracle through because he wanted something. So when you want something, like you mentioned, marriage is work. It is work. So I want to ask you, how do we, not everybody's going to go through Half Our Deen, right? What are some of the things that you can?
Yeah, I'll give you guys tips. So if you don't, I'll give you a tip for those who are looking to get married. And okay, I'm talking to somebody right now. I don't need to join your website. By the way, I'm not pushing people to join my website.
Right.
I just provided a different platform, which has helped people get married. In fact, what sounds a lot of strange to a lot of people when I talk to them is hey, if I was looking to get married, I wouldn't just join Half Deen. I would join Half Deen and a whole bunch of other websites. Why? Because just like looking for a job, you wouldn't put your resume or your CV on one website. Right. You go as many platforms as possible because you don't know where your future employer is going to come from. You'll tell your friends, you tell your families, you use every halal means effort. So I wouldn't put myself on, even though I run this website, I'm telling you that
the keyword is halal. The keyword is halal network.
That's why I threw in the halal, make sure it's halal. So I'll give you guys a tip. Some of you guys can do that we do on Half Our Deen, but you can do it individually with each person you're speaking to. And again, it's so much easier that when you click on a profile, all this has already been done. But if you want to do it manually, you can do it manually. I suggest don't scare people off with 158 questions like I just mentioned, but there's another way you can do it, something else you can do that may give you some insight if you guys are compatible. I came up with this feature called priorities. And priorities are 10 things that I ask people to list from the most important to the least important. So I give this and I say, answer this. Now, I remove physical attraction because most guys will put it up there. And I move success because most women will put it up on their list. So I remove those so it'll be gender neutral. So I have words like intelligent, generosity, desire for children, same culture, similar religious understanding, manners, kindness, neatness, similar education. None of these are bad. In fact, all of them sound like really good things. So I ask you to prioritize it from the most important to the least important without showing you my list. And as soon as you're done, I will compare your list to my list and see how similar we are. And to see how far certain words are. Because, for example, let's say desire for children is number 1 on your list, but number 10 on her list. That might be an issue. Or same culture is number 1 on her list, maybe number 6 on your list.
That's a very good tip.
And you're not the same culture.
Right.
You have different cultures. If that's number 1 for her, Like for me, on that list, it would be similar religious understanding. Similar because if we don't see eye to eye, we might have some problems on things. So that's more important to me than, like, for example, neatness. Even though I'm a neat person, I have to prioritize. And the hard part about this is everything seems to be very important. Like, where would kindness be? Right? What about intelligence? Is intelligence the last thing? No, intelligence is important. Everything's important. So this makes it hard. And that's how you know it's a good question or a good activity where it's not easy. Because if everything looks like, oh, this is what the way the answer is supposed to look like, people are going to answer it the way you want to hear it. But because the correct answer isn't clear, and this is what I mentioned earlier of the podcast, was when I asked those 17 sisters questions, my questions were extremely unique compared to the questions I hear sisters and brothers ask each other right now. I'll give you a sample of one question I asked. And for those who are listening, write these questions down. Maybe this will help you, inshallah. So I'll ask a question like, maybe I'll ask you this question. Do you think the world needs more justice or more mercy? What would you say? With all this stuff that's happening in the world right now, do we need more justice or do we need more mercy?
I would say both.
Of course, as I said, every question I ask, they both sound like they're right answers. And that's why the questions are hard. But which one do we need a little bit more of?
Justice.
Justice. That tells me you're more fair than forgiving. Because the person who uses justice is more fair, and the person who chooses mercy is more forgiving. Now, I'll ask you the question. What are you more attracted to in the opposite gender? Would you rather have a spouse that's more fair, or would you rather have a spouse who's more forgiving? Now, my preference was I was looking for a spouse that's more fair, while my wife was looking for someone who's more forgiving. There's no right or wrong answer here because every answer is correct. Now, let's go back to 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One is the most just and one is the most forgiving.
Yeah.
So my questions are very unique. They reveal some things about you and you have no idea how to answer it because if it's the right question, you know what you're going to say? They're both correct. And that's what I do. Like when it comes to like a children's behavior, who do you think has a bigger impact on a child's behavior? Their parents or their friends?
At a certain age, friends. Like when they're a teenager, when they're like 11 to, plus, that's when friends come in. And before that, it's parents.
Okay. And by the way, I have 3 questions. These are questions I have for Deen, by the way. So like this question is mentioned to you and it's one of 158 questions. The 3 options you have is their teachers, their parents, and their friends. And what happens is when you answer this question a certain way, and the person answers the question a certain way, and you do the entire quiz,
interesting.
At the very end, it says that you're 27% match on religious understanding, 44% match on like culture, 88% match on finances, some things that people don't talk about very much. And then what you do is you click on the actual quiz, and it says you answered this question this way, she answered this way. You, them. So when you actually get on the phone together and you want to talk, you know exactly where you don't see a line. Because all the major questions I've already asked both of you, and now you get to see where you're not aligned, so you don't waste time with a bunch of questions where you already are aligned. And that way you filter out people that don't match with you before you even say salam alaikum to them. And that's the problem. I think a lot of people who are looking to get married, including brothers, they're mentally exhausted. They don't want to look anymore. Sisters especially are more mentally exhausted than brothers because what happens is they talk for weeks, they talk for months, and then finally get to a roadblock and says, I'm sorry, my parents don't want me to marry someone that's outside my culture. And you're like, dude, why are we even talking for 2 months?
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt your feelings.
And they ghost you, right?
And they ghost you.
Yeah. So interesting. Like, I want to wrap up the session and definitely, I think these are wonderful tips for brothers. I think definitely I wish half our thing came like 2014, right?
2010, July 10,
2010. Okay. Interesting. So like, I think I did hear about it. I don't think I plugged myself in. Maybe I was the guy who didn't go through 150 questions. Perhaps that was me, right? I was like, that's too much. So here's the thing that, the reality right now is that, a lot of sisters tell me like guys need to get their things, they need to get it together. Like, what's your thought on that? Like, should the guys tone down on the whole look aspect, or is it really just the culture? Again, like, everything that you observe, everything that you see, the society, the social perspective, like, there's a certain concept you carry. And then other than going back to the Deen, right? I think one thing you dropped the mic on, just go back to the Deen, understand what exactly your journey with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, because that identifies who you are looking for and you're able to satisfy yourself, right? But it's still, some people say, looks matter, right? So if the first glance,
by the way, I'm one of those guys.
Okay.
Also, looks do matter. If I was looking to get married, looks do matter.
So should you it's okay for a guy to say, I'm not interested because there's no looks, because like sometimes I'm tired of like connecting people and they're like, oh, we're not attracted. I'm sitting like, this girl is like amazing. You got to talk to her. She's this. Like, I'm looking at the other side of the 150 questions that you were mentioning, right? And this guy just looked at the face and rejected her. I'm like, dude, I don't know.
You know why? What they're rejecting? They're looking for a 10, right? And when I say looks matter, I'm not saying I want a sister who's a 10. I'm asking, I'm okay with a sister who's a 6 or a 7. So when I say looks matter, it does. What I mean by that is, just make sure I clarify this, is that you have to have some type of spark, some type of physical attraction. It doesn't need to be a supermodel, right? The question is, a lot of people, girls included, are looking for men who are 10s, or looking for women, guys are looking for women who are 10s. And you ask them, what are you? And usually most people average themselves out to about a 7. And my question to those same people is, why would the 10 marry a 7? And they're completely speechless. Just like you just said, wow, right now. So what I do is like this. First of all, they're not 10s. No, in your view, they're a 10. But that same 10 brother or the same 10 sister who's amazingly beautiful, amazingly successful, the first time they belittle you, the first time they talk down upon you, the first time they really hurt you, that 10 drops down to like a 1. Right? So that beauty goes out the door. It doesn't matter how beautiful, your beauty is not going to protect you from all that stuff, right? So I tell brothers, you meet a good sister. She's not a supermodel. She's not like those influencers on social media, but she's a real sister that has your back, that she supports you and you support her, that you have this companionship, you have this love. That 7 moves up to an 8, 9, 10. Yes. That's where our definition of attractiveness completely changes. And you've been married for whatever number of years. I've been married for 19 years, going on to 20.
MashaAllah.
There are certain things that I was not in love with my wife when I married her. I was not in an arranged marriage, but there are certain characteristics I was looking for in a sister, and she had them. But she wasn't a supermodel sister. In fact, my ex before was a super rich, super like what you would call super beautiful thing. And I realized that beauty can go really bad really fast, because the first time you guys clash, it's not beautiful. It's not beautiful.
So I think that's wonderful. That beauty increases in personalities, in manner. There's so many other things that beautifies a personnel, right? So Prophet ﷺ said, you marry for 4 reasons, and the Sunnah, and one of the the 4s are like the wealth, the status, right? The Deen. Like if you marry, like interesting, the way I came out with this process, like if you marry somebody with a Deen, this person has a wealth of good deeds. This person has the nur in their face of the good looks, right? This person carries the status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They come with those, yes, there's a status in dunya, there's wealth, but they come with these other, metaphysical status, metaphysical wealth, metaphysical looks that you eventually see that barakah in your life as you go through this journey together. That's the way I approached that hadith very specifically. Jazakallah khair for what you're doing. I think, look, 2,500 success in marriages, mashallah, that's amazing. Like you got yourself some Jannah deeds, you got yourself some stocks invested in hereafter. That's amazing, right? All the good deeds, all these marriages are successful. That's really awesome. You're helping others connect. And so one final question I had is, are there more, I think it's a stigma. I'm not sure. Maybe you can help us through this. Are there more sisters in the market versus brothers, or is this just like, it's not a real fact?
I'm just thinking my words before I answer this question properly. So there are far more sisters looking than brothers, and there are some sisters that will never get married. And that's their mic drop right there. Because the reality is sometimes we are our own worst enemies. And when there's a lot of sisters looking for a specific type of brother, and there's only a small group of brothers that fit that criteria of those 19 checkboxes sisters have. And if all those guys get married, what are the other sisters going to do? So unless our idea of success or our standards change of what we want in a husband or in a wife, there's a lot of people not going to get married. Not because, there's too many sisters or too many brothers. It's the fact that we have these unrealistic expectations of what a perfect husband would be, a perfect wife would be. And I will not change no matter what. And this is one of the reasons why we have so many people not realizing that sometimes they can be their own worst enemies. How many people live in Southern California, Muslims looking to get married? Give me a number, guys. I'll show you real quick what I'm talking about. Throw me a number, any number.
10,000.
10,000 Muslims looking to get married. Super high number in Los Angeles, but let's just imagine 10,000 people. Of that, 5,000 are men. Of the 5,000 that are men, because male-female ratio is about 1-to-1 in the United States. You can search this up on Google. Every single country in the world is about 1-to-1 ratio, very close to 1-to-1, except for 2 countries, the Emirates and Saudi Arabia. Everywhere else in the world is about 1-to-1 ratio. And the reason why I think Saudi Arabia has more than men, because polygamy is much more common there. So obviously women from other countries may come over there, but that's maybe, and the Emirates, obviously same thing. The Gulf states, men marrying more than one wife. But in countries like Russia and other places, they have more men than, men than women. So it's not the issue of there's not enough men looking to get married, or there's not enough men out there in the first place. We're equal. So now of those 5,000 brothers, ask sisters, what's one of the things you're looking for? So one of the things they say I'm looking for, by the way, these are things that men don't look for, right? I need a certain height of the brother to be, right? So if you had to give a height, let's say 6 feet, what percentage of brothers are 6 feet and above? Can you guys give me a number?
None of them in Bangladesh, I can tell you.
Okay, so by the way, these are US citizens, right? So US has a lot of Europeans in this country. We have Africans in this country. Yeah. So Muslims, we deal with Indian, Pakistani. We deal with people in other, like Bangladesh, as you're saying, they're not known for being tall Muslims. The number in America, with all the mixture, the melting pot that we have, we have a lot of people that came from the UK, from Germany, from their ancestors from there, which tend to be taller, is 14.5%. So of these 5,000 brothers, we have reduced it down to 14% of those brothers. Now, all we did is height so far. Now, every time I click on another filter, we're going to reduce it down and down and down and down. So you can easily so the next thing we say, okay, we're looking for a job. So you're like, okay, how much does he need to make? Any job? Can he be a garbage man? No. He can't be a garbage man. Okay, what kind of job? Like, how much does he need to make? Oh, he needs to make at least, and they throw a number out. What's the number? They say maybe 75,000 a year. Okay. What percentage of men make 75,000 a year? And by the way, I have links for all of these things. So using the US Census, you can search about what percentage of men make this much money, what percentage make this much money. And you actually move a little dial to see what percentage. So of the 14, sorry, go ahead.
Within Muslim population or just general?
General, because we know Muslims are not going to be separate from these people.
Right.
Got it. Say in general, because the height we don't know. We don't have a specific census for Muslim. So a small percentage of men, about less than 15%, make that amount that people are looking for. So we're already down 14% of 5,000. That of that 5,000, we have to take a 14%, whatever percentage of that. And now we got a certain number of Muslims left. Then I ask you the question, does good character even count? Of course, good character counts. Okay, what percentage of men have good character, the kind of quality that you're looking for in a spouse? Oh, percentage of that, okay. What about practicing Islam? Do you care about that? Or it's okay if he doesn't practice anything of Islam? Or someone says, of course I want someone who practices Islam. It's gonna be the father of my children. I might as well marry a non-Muslim. Okay, fantastic, take a percentage of that. And when you do all this, you come down to like maybe 40 guys, 45 guys. You had 10,000 people in the community, you have 40 people that's left in all of Los Angeles. Why would those 40 people marry you? Where would they find you? How do they know you exist? What makes you stand out? What makes you so special that these people can choose anyone they want, by the way, because every girl wants them. They hit all 19 check boxes. Why would they choose you? And every single time I ask that question, they don't have an answer to it. And I tell sisters, in order for you guys there's specific things these guys want in a spouse. And sisters are completely clueless. I'm not saying somewhat completely clueless when I talk to them about this. They have no idea. In fact, they're completely shocked when I tell them, this is what a guy wants. And this is what a guy wants. No, that's not what he wants. Really? How is it been working out for you with the way you've been doing it? And it's like, well, all the guys I've been attracting are the kind of guys I don't want. You ever wonder why? Have you been able to attract these type of guys? These 40 guys or 50 guys or 20 guys that are in your community? And it's like, no. Well, maybe you should try something different. Because the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. If your current method isn't working, maybe something's wrong with the method.
Yeah. Right.
But then the thing is, it's like, no, it's men are bad. Men are evil. And there's no good men out there. Okay, that's your conclusion. Guess what? You want to be like this and pretend like this. Some other girl's going to marry that guy. What I'm trying to show you is you can marry that guy. You're not off the sale. You just have to there's a way to attract that guy. There are certain things that men are attracted to that sisters will never tell you about, because who you're listening to are your best friends who aren't married, who are giving all this advice to you, and they think they know. You're laughing, right? Because you know what I'm talking about. Or in your ear telling you, and you should tell them this, and how is that working out for you? I always say, your friends who aren't guys telling you how men think. Why don't you listen to guys telling you how men think? So when I do this podcast, or I'm not this podcast specific, but when I'm doing these talks on Clubhouse, I'll tell you how men think. I talk about all these issues you'll say you'll never hear on social media. Like I'll say, like, this is how me and my wife fight. And by the way, me and my wife are, not right now, but the other day I was saying, me and my wife have been fighting. We haven't talked to each other for 2 days. Why am I telling you guys this? Because most of you jump on social media and you see how perfect marriages are and how everything's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that it's okay to fight. It's okay to have disagreements. Yeah. It's okay not to see eye to eye. It's okay not to talk to each other once in a while.
Right.
No one's going to say that on social media. So what happens is you guys watch all this marriage and learn everything about marriage on social media. And then one day you are going to go get married and you realize my life isn't like them. So something's wrong. Yeah. So I need to get a divorce. And what I tell people is that if their marriage was transparent, you would never be shocked when your friends tell you, guess who got divorced? How many times have you been shocked when you find out a couple's being divorced?
Yeah.
And why are you shocked? Because they never fought in public. They fought behind closed doors. So anyways, I talk about the truth on things and it shocks people, but then it's like, wow, I really never thought about it that way. And I'm telling sisters, you can have all these check boxes, which is fine. We got it down to those 40 guys, but now the next step is, which you forgot to do is like, how do I get those guys to find me? So what do those guys have on their checklist?
Yeah.
If I'm a guy who's making a lot of money, if you're handsome, if you have all these things that sisters are looking for, you have a specific checklist. And those girls need to know what the checklist is, because if you don't know what the checklist is, they're not going to pick you. They won't even look right by you. And they're not on swiping apps, by the way. Those guys, they're not on swiping apps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow.
Some food for thought. Yeah.
Food for thought, man. So do you feel like there's a lot of, like, you know, there's a whole different podcast of sustaining the marriage. I think that's important, what you mentioned, because, you know, folks that are married for 5 years, 10 years, 15, mashallah, I think you're married for 20 years now, right?
Almost, in August will be 20 years, yeah.
Oh, mashallah, congratulations. So I got 10 on my belt, and I'm like sitting here like, there needs to be like a mentor content that we need to observe, sustaining the marriage in this paradigm that we live in, right?
I'll tell you one thing I found very interesting, because I travel so much and I do like comedy shows, and then I go hang out with the community afterwards, and I see unique things in different communities. Like in Tampa, Florida, there's a masjid that has in their Islamic school, non-Muslims come to it. The level of education is so high, non-Muslims bring their kids to Islamic school.
Wow. Just
for the fact that the education level is so high. It's kind of like when Muslims take their kids in Catholic school or Christian school. Not because the kids are Catholic or Christian. They have no interest in Catholic or Christian ideology, but the quality of the private school is so high, they're willing to take the risk. Maybe my kids may be influenced by Christianity or that whatever. And that's what they imagine non-Muslims who may be even atheists. They'll take your kids and put them in Islamic school. So I've been seeing all these different things. And one thing I saw in Houston, Texas, was this interesting thing. They said the local imam here doesn't marry you until you do one specific type of course. And what is the course? It's not really a class. He puts you in a room with you and the person you want to marry. Imagine you guys sit next to each other like this. Not really halal gap between you guys, but you guys sitting, and there's a table, and then there's 2 chairs on the opposite side. The door opens up, 2 people walk in who've been married for 2 years. They sit down and they tell you what marriage life is really like, what they fight about, what the disagreements are, what the good parts are, the bad parts, everything about it that no one ever told them, things that they learned. Then they get up for 2 hours and they leave. And the next couple walks in. They've been married for 20 years. Now they're telling you, like someone like myself, let me tell you what 20 years of marriage feels like, and tell me what the pluses and minuses and some of the trials you guys may face and things you should be aware of, the goods and the bads and everything that comes with the in-laws, this and that, things you guys should definitely discuss. And if you ever get mad, do it this way. So they get up and they leave. Then finally the imam walks and sits down. And he says, all these marriage issues that come up, all the divorces, all the people who want some nikahs here, and all the trials and tribulations that people are going through, people are getting like having major problems, they come to me. I'm not a marriage therapist, but these are the kind of issues that are coming up within the Muslim community. Everything from infidelity to whatever that you guys don't hear about unless you're the imam. And he, after this 6-hour session's finished, he asks you, do you still want to get married?
Wow.
And at that point, you say yes and yes. And now you can't. That's the best real life experience of what marriage life is going to be like. You're not going to walk in and have these expectations that don't exist. The divorce rate of right now is 45%. When I was looking to get married, it was 31. So 45, and I predict in my kids' generation, it'll be around 60%. But that's another topic for another day, inshallah.
All right, inshallah. May Allah bless you. So what's your favorite success story from halfourdeen.com? And where can people tune into, like, to kind of follow you and your social media handles?
So I'm social media. I don't really, you see me, Instagram has like 100,000 followers, but I'm barely on it. If you want to message me, you can message me on Instagram. You can message Half Our Deen to Instagram. I'll answer those messages directly myself. But if you want to talk to me in person, and actually I hold rooms where I actually talk about real issues that people are really going through that are marriage related, and the stuff you don't hear in khutbahs and you don't hear from talks, like real talk, like no filter, tell you like it is, and tell you hopefully how you can find your other half. And it's not about, just join Half Our Deen. It's not like that. Think like real stuff you can do even if you're talking to your cousin or talking to a family friend or whatever. So I'm on an app called Clubhouse. Just type in Baba Ali, you'll find me. And many of this app is starting to become a bigger social media platform. And you can actually talk to me as a human being, and you'll be in rooms, and I'll hold rooms for 4 or 5 hours. The longest hours I've ever held a room for was 13 hours. And all they want to talk about marriage. It wouldn't stop. And it's they can leave anytime they want, but oftentimes the message I get is this is actual real stuff I haven't heard in a podcast and I haven't heard in a khutbah. So I'm wanting people to not get married, but just stay married. And that's the bigger issue we have right now. There's a lot of people getting married. That's one issue. Who cares about my 2,500 success stories? The real question is how many people are staying married? And that's what my goal is, inshallah.
Wow. Yeah. And what's your favorite story from your half?
So my favorite story, there's many of them, alhamdulillah, but it's the majority of people who join Half Deen, they don't want their story to be anywhere told to anybody. They are extremely, extremely private. They don't share the success story. Famous Muslims who, if I mention to your audience right now, who actually spoke at the mass conference, who spoke at ISNA, who are these big names on Half Deen. So, but no one knows. And the reason why is because it's a private platform, because it's the kind of person who could be a very big name, or she could be a big name. They join, as soon as they find somebody, they get married, they leave, and as if they never existed. No search results, literally as a ghost, right? So I was one day at a Turkish festival, and this brother's not Turkish, but I was at a Turkish festival, and I was waiting in line for food. And I was waiting for line for food. Somebody walks up to me, "Hey, Assalamu alaikum, are you Baba Ali?" I'm like, "Yeah." Oh, and I thought they were talking about my Hooray for Baba Ali period series, or I thought they were going to talk about my stand-up comedy or my Ummah films. "Hey, me and my wife met on your website, but don't tell anybody." I'm like, "What?" And his wife walks up. "Did you tell him?" "Yeah, let's get out of here." And they run away. I'm like, "Where are they going?" And I never got his name, her name, nothing. They just went away really fast.
No.
And I'm like, okay. But I tell them they look happy, and they were saying, "Oh, we met on your wife. We met on your website. It was amazing, blah, blah, blah. Thank you very much." And they run away. They just want to say thank you. And they run away. And they're like, "Okay, that's my audience." The extremely private people, which makes it so difficult for me trying to market this, because I'm reaching a very private audience who don't want the world to know they met on a matchmaking website. Yeah. But at the positive side, it's okay because they're happy. And that's awesome. All that matters.
Yeah. Awesome. May Allah bless you, mate. I'm really happy, really excited. Jazakumullah khair. May Allah accept from
Thank you for having me. Great podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This is Muhammad Kibriya with the ReMAStered Podcast, signing off. Until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
This episode is brought to you by the revolutionary Muslim matrimonial site Half Our Deen, which uses science, not swipes, to help you find the other half. On Half Our Deen, you can learn about their personality, interests, and view up to 158 answers to marriage-related questions, so you don't waste time with people that you're not compatible with. With over 2,500 success stories, Half Our Deen has quickly become the #1 choice for marriage-minded Muslims.